right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages, we're here for yet another conversation about Sheriff Buford Pusser of McNairy County, Tennessee. This is a new segment I've added to the YouTube channel called Voices from the Past, and tonight we're going to hear excerpts of a conversation I had with former Sheriff James Opal Gray years ago. And in this first part, I'm going to ask him about his thoughts on Buford Pusser.
Well, as you found out, McNairy County was either you were for Buford Pusser or against it.
Now that we have heard his thoughts on Buford Pusser, I asked him what he thought about Jim Moffett, Buford's chief deputy.
Apparently Jim Moffett thought a lot of you.
Well, I tell you what, I can sum Jim Moffett up for you in just real short order. He was a fine man, and I mean a good Christian man, and a good law enforcement officer.
I consider myself very lucky to have had the opportunity to speak to so many of the people that were there and knew things that happened back in the day, lived their own parts of the real story. And one of the things that I wanted to ask about was, anything that he could tell me about events at the Shamrock Motel, especially the death of Louise Hathcock. And he said that he didn't know much about that. Of course, everything that he heard would have been hearsay, so on and so forth. But then he revealed something just out of the blue that just really took me by surprise.
While I was researching the story on it, I got into when Louise Hathcock was shot there at the the Shamrock.
Uh-huh.
And have you ever seen her autopsy report?
I haven't never seen the autopsy report, but I'll tell you a little story. I served on the grand jury when she was killed.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
What can you tell me about that?
What?
What can you tell me about that?
Nothing. We exonerated Buford self-defense, and that's. But it showed some pictures of the bullet wounds, and that's about it.
Were you aware that she was shot from behind twice?
I don't think that was brought up.
Next, the conversation turned to witnesses at the grand jury hearing that James Opal Gray sat on. I had always been led to believe that Warren Jones and Jim Moffett were the ones that gave most of the testimony at that grand jury hearing, but, Gray said that wasn't exactly right. Listen to what he has to add to that part of the conversation.
I know that Will Abernathy had Warren Jones and, of course, Jim, I guess, were the only two to testify before you guys, right?
Right, now you're talking about a long time ago now. I don't know. The only people that I know that testified in that room or talked about it, Buford talked about it, and I don't remember what he even said, and the Attorney General. And, of course, what we heard, there wasn't no reason to indict anybody for it. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And so it just became moot. It just went by the wayside.
Yeah.
At this point, I decided to ask Gray about Howard Carroll. As you know, Carroll was supposed to have been in the back room there at the motel office and was said to have overheard Louise begging for her life. So I was interested in learning if he had been called to testify.
Well, I never got to speak to the man, but, I've talked to people that did talk to Howard Carroll. And, he was there when it happened. He didn't see it, but he said that Louise was begging for her life before she was shot. And I was just wondering if you'd ever heard anything about that. I didn't realize that you'd served on the grand jury.
Never heard about that.
Huh.
Never heard about that.
Next, I inquired about Gray's thoughts on the dynamics of the shooting that day, and I asked if he had seen any photographs of the room or diagrams, and here's what he had to say.
Did you guys get to see pictures or diagrams of where the shooting took place?
No, I never seen anything like that.
Now, I don't know how you feel about it, but after listening to former Sheriff Gray and learning that he actually sat on the grand jury that was investigating Louise Hathcock's death, you know, I feel like that the prosecutor did everything he could to scuttle any charges being brought up against Buford. And, you know, the grand jury did return a no true bill, so he got off. Even though the state had done an autopsy report, it wasn't shown to the grand jury, according to Gray. Obviously, there were crime scene photos taken, diagrams made probably, and he says he didn't see those. They didn't hear the testimony of people like Howard Carroll or another individual that happened to be there. So what did they have to work with? And why was the grand jury given no real information? You know, it just sounds like that the intent all along was to get Buford off. At any rate, next week we'll be back with another episode of Voices from the Past. And until then, just remember what Buford always said: what's right is right, and what's wrong is wrong, and it doesn't matter who you are. Have a good one.